Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org. This is PBS Reno Arts. I am Dave Santina from the studios at PBS Reno in Reno, Nevada. And today, talking with Karen Terrey, who is a newly minted. You might smell that new Poet Laureate smell. She's just newly minted Poet Laureate for Nevada County in California, and you're a Truckee-based poet and writer and educator, and you are the owner of Tangled Roots Writing. So you have a whole bunch of stuff going on, But the inspiration for having you come in was we met just a few days ago, really, by chance at the Cordillera Film Festival Gala, and I said, oh, please come in and talk about being the Poet Laureate of Nevada County. I think that's really cool. Yeah. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I'm so happy to be here, and I was so happy to just say, yes, that sounds great. Whenever someone wants to talk about poetry, I'm always for it.
I love it. Well, I think it's one of those things that it's not a part of my everyday life, and so I'm always interested in getting engaged with things that are not my everyday. And so I really appreciate that you're in this position, and you were appointed to the Poet Laureate position by Nevada County Arts Council.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, Nevada County Arts Council, and also there's two cultural districts within Nevada County. There's the Truckee Cultural District and the Nevada City Grass Valley Cultural District. And so all three of these entities support the Poet Laureate program.
Nice. And for those who are not looking at a map right now, and I am also not, I did look earlier because it occurred to me, well, now where exactly is Nevada County? And if you're looking at a Nevada, California map there, if you basically go from Nevada state line west through Truckee and further west to Nevada City and Grass Valley, that's sort of a horizontal strip. That's a lot of that is Nevada County.
That's the county, and it's an interesting county because we're divided by Donner Summit. So the geography of our county gives us this challenge of bridging both ends of our county because we're very different too demographically. You know, in Truckee, we have Tahoe, the resorts, the recreation. Nevada City and Grass Valley have much more of a music and art scene traditionally. And that's one of the reasons why it's so exciting to be the Poet Laureate for Nevada County now, because one of my goals is to really work on this project of bridging the county. Truckee's art scene and culture scene in the last few years, and it's been a special focus since we were designated as a cultural district by the state of California, has just been growing. And that includes not just literary arts, but drama and performance, music, culinary arts, the visual arts, of course. So being Poet Laureate is part of this bigger project of building the art scene in Truckee.
Well, it's a big job. As I'm understanding now, I think that's a noble cause. There, bridging the county is a great idea.
Yes.
Now you just started this term because I see there was an event just the other day that was called Passing of the Laurels, where the previous Poet Laureate, Kirsten Casey, kind of hands it over to you, right?
Yes, at Alibi Ale Works in Truckee, and we had at least 120 people there. It was so exciting to see so many people come out for poetry and the literary arts. We had representatives from the High School Poetry Prose Club. We had teachers. We had faculty from Sierra College. My book club, which has been meeting for over 12 years. And all these different communities coming together. It was great. And we do have some very silly photographs of Kirsten putting a handmade laurel crown on my head, which didn't stay on very long. But we had a great reading. We did a joint reading and conversation on the role of Poet Laureate, and then we had an open mic for the community.
Nice. So a literal passing of the laurels on top of your head.
Yes.
Nice. Well, so now you are in this position, and it's my understanding, as we were chatting a little before we went on, is it's identified as a year-long term, but traditionally it gets extended, so it's likely to go beyond that.
Exactly.
But not officially yet.
Right. And the idea is that, you're an ambassador, right? You're an ambassador for poetry, but you're also an ambassador for your communities. And trying to figure out how, like you said, poetry isn't part of your daily life, right?
Right.
But one of my projects is thinking about, poetry is part of my daily life, and it means something so different than what people find out in middle school.
Yeah.
Right? Which usually if you really want to turn someone off from a conversation and they ask you what you do, all you have to do is say, I'm a poet. And they'll pretty much say, I hate poetry. Or change the subject. So, part of my project here is how to make poetry relevant, make it accessible. And it is language, though, that we always go to, right, in important times in our lives, right? Marriages, ceremonies. Just the other day I was doing laundry and I was thinking, poetry is the concentrated laundry detergent of language.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting way to put it.
It's very compressed. It's intense language, right? But it actually communicates something that we can't say in everyday words.
It's true.
Yeah.
And often poetry allows us to express ourselves in ways that we can't articulate ourselves.
Exactly.
And we use them. You use it as an aid, almost as a crutch.
It does have a way of saying something. It's like when you think about a song and people ask, well, are the lyrics the song without the music, right? You can't really separate the lyrics from the music. And poetry is the same way. You can't really separate the content from the form, the way it's put together. And that's what makes it a different type of communication.
I like it. I like it. And so you're just starting out with this position, and you've got to start somewhere. So
right.
What's the first move as part of this grand plan?
Well, I've been doing this work already in Truckee and in the county since 2008. So I founded Tangled Roots Writing in 2008. And basically that was when I came back. I got my MFA in creative writing at Goddard College in Vermont. I came back to Truckee and I said, where's my community? Where are the writers? And started teaching workshops and hosting events. I started doing open mics and doing book launches for people just to bring my community out and, be with other writers. And then it's organically grown. And so, my mission has always been to be building this literary community and also traveling to find it. So, I go down to Carson, I come down to Reno for events, Sacramento and San Francisco as well. I think you really, you need a large territory to find that inspiration, right? That from different artists.
That makes sense.
Yeah, to learn from too. It's from other writers and artists that I learn from. So, it's ongoing. I've been doing this work for a long time. Moving forward, to get started, we're really focusing on April because it's National Poetry Month. And that's why we have the Sierra Poetry Festival. This is the 9th annual, and it's at the Center for the Arts in Grass Valley. It's April 12th. So I'm organizing with the festival different pop-ups events throughout April. We've got a bunch in Truckee, a bunch in Nevada City and Grass Valley, and then April 12th, we have a lineup of poets. Kim Adonisio is our keynote, who's just incredible, from San Francisco.
Nice. And so, and anybody can attend, right?
Yeah. Yep. You can go online and on the Nevada County Arts Council website, or just Google Sierra Poetry Festival and buy tickets.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's April 12th.
Yes.
Now, I know a week before that is a Truckee event that you are a big part of.
Yes. So on April 5th, and this is a new event happening in Truckee, and it's called the Truckee Literary Crawl. And you can go to truckeeliterarycrawl.com to find out more information. It starts at 1:00 with at like venues throughout Truckee. Different writers and poets will be reading. And then that evening at Alibi Ale Works, we're going to have a really fun community open mic, which I'm going to be emceeing.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone's invited to come to that and sign up to read.
Okay. So, and that's in the evening. So if I were to go in the morning to spend my day at the Truckee Literary Crawl, what might I have? What choices might I have?
Well, I would say get there early for breakfast, right? Go to Squeeze In, maybe. And then at 1:00, I think there's going to be maybe 5 or 6 venues, and you can move from venue to venue. And at each one, there'll be 2 or 3 people presenting their work and selling their books, and also answering questions on how they write and what they do.
So it's an opportunity to meet the writer, sample their work a little bit, maybe, and then hopefully purchase something that touches you.
If you want, exactly.
But mainly it's a celebration of literary arts, not so much as sales.
Right, exactly. It's fun. It's like a sampler plate or a buffet, right?
Nice.
So you can go from venue to venue, and also they're really fun venues. They're the old theater space, Alibi Ale Works, a couple of the different art galleries. So it's going to be beautiful.
Anything in that bookstore?
Oh, Word After Word Books, great independent bookstore downtown Truckee. It's really amazing. It carries all the books of the authors that are reading.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That is my favorite bookstore to visit now.
Really?
I just love the vibe in there, right? The dark wood, the layout is beautiful. It's welcoming.
Yeah.
And then you get to go downstairs. And there's a downstairs that has vinyl, and it's got some knickknacks and some cool sort of trinkets and fun other books that are about music, but that's sort of the music focused section in the basement. But just a really enjoyable experience being in that bookstore. And I discovered it for myself maybe a year ago. I don't know how long it's been there. I know years ago it was not, and so
it opened just before COVID.
Gotcha.
And then they amazingly shipped books everywhere during COVID, and they had a secret system to open the door and deliver bags of books to people on the street. So they really made it work. That downstairs, the walls are the stone, right? The stone of the basement itself, right? And they say that building is haunted.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Yes.
It has a great look. It better be. There should be some book-related ghost hanging around.
I am sure there is. And we just had last week also, we had a book launch there for my friend Liz Tucker for a novel that she just published, actually, and started over 10 years ago in one of my workshops.
Oh, wow. Hey,
it was
that's
really fun.
Feel gratifying for you as a teacher.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was one of her early editors for the manuscript. Yeah, so it was really fun.
Yes, and you do a lot of teaching, right? Do you still have regular teaching?
I do.
Work?
So I actually have an ongoing Monday night workshop that I teach. It's hybrid, so people can Zoom in as well as come to my living room and have tea and chocolate.
Oh, nice.
And it's a generative workshop, and I've been doing this workshop since 2008. This was the first one that I started, and it's basically been ongoing since then. And then I also coach one-on-one with people if they're writing a novel or a memoir, do manuscript review if they're ready for that developmental edit. And then I also teach at Sierra College. I teach English.
Okay, so your plate is full.
It is very full.
No kidding. All right, but for April 5th, you are hosting the open mic night. So as the MC, what do you look for in presenting to that audience? Do you recite your own work at that event? I'm
reading earlier in the day.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I will read something at the open mic or not. As a host, I think one of the most important things is to keep the event moving, right? Keep it interesting for the audience. Help the people who are reading. Sometimes it's their first time at the mic. Oh. So they might need some help with how to use the mic, right?
Stage fright,
encouragement, right? and just keeping the energy high, I think, and making sure that people are really applauding and listening and appreciating the bravery, right? That people are doing, going up to that mic and reading sometimes fun, happy pieces, and sometimes pretty heavy pieces.
This makes me think of Monday Night Poetry at Shim's in downtown Reno, which we just did a story on for Artifacts. If you haven't seen it, check it out. pbsreno.org. You can find Artifacts and look for the story that just came out about Monday Night Poetry. But the person who is the MC for that event, Jesse James Ziegler, who I believe is Reno's Poet Laureate.
He is the Reno Poet Laureate. He is amazing.
He talked about in this story the feeling that he gets, the warm feeling that he gets from seeing people develop who are terrified at first to go up there and then develop and grow and gain confidence and are looking forward to getting up on stage and performing, reciting, however you want to describe it, because the atmosphere is so welcoming.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So I imagine there will be a similar feeling at the Alibi Ale Works.
That's what I love about the open mics too, is that it encourages you to try new material. I use it as a way to help myself revise my work and also to push myself with deadlines to write a poem. But to just that welcoming like tribe, right, of people there who everyone's supporting each other, and it's pretty diverse. Really different experiences being written about and read. So yeah, I love it. And we're going to be doing more open mics. One of my goals is really to reach out to more youth. Jesse Ziegler is a great example of a hardworking poet laureate here in Reno. He's got so many programs going on. He was at the my event on Tuesday night and read at the open mic. He actually wrote a poem to me for the event that he read at the open mic. It was really beautiful.
Wow, how moving to have someone write about you.
There were tears in the room, for sure.
Incredible.
It was.
Huh. What's it like to have somebody write a poem for you, about you?
I had no idea he did it. He surprised me with it. Yeah, it was really beautiful.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So there are more details about the open mic night and the event at TruckyLitCrawl.com. Do you need people to submit in advance if they want to read that night or perform that night?
People can sign up that night for the open mic. So just be up at Alibi Ale House. I think it's at 6 o'clock. Ideally get there a little early, 5:30. They have some really good non-alcoholic kombucha there, along with their beers and great food. And they have a little stage. It's a really nice venue for doing open mics. For the readings itself, we're full. So we've already got that lineup set. In the fall, we do have the Tahoe Literary Festival. It'll be the second annual. We are looking for people for that.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. Where will that be happening?
That's in Tahoe City.
Okay. Also at a place that has...
At many different venues, actually. Yes.
I was going to say, if it's a place with a bar, and you're not comfortable yet on stage, get a little liquid courage, just enough. You don't have to get, out of control, just enough so that you don't quite feel so nervous.
Exactly.
Get up there and do your best.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair way to approach it sometimes. Now, I want to know about Tangled Roots a little bit more.
Okay.
It's described on the website as a hub for literary mentorship and workshops. You just described one of your former mentees getting a new book published.
Yeah.
So that's got to be incredible. But how do you begin to mentor a writer?
It varies. It depends. You have to meet them where they're at. Some people are writers and they have a project they're writing. And so I can come in and at that level and work with them, help them either chapter by chapter, thinking about, character development, right? If this is a novel, right? Character development. How can you strengthen your scene writing? What about the sensory detail and emotional, power of what you're writing on the page? Something's in your head, but by the time it gets on the page, it's not affecting the reader in the same way, right? So it's really helping with that translation of from the page to the reader, right? And from your head to the page developing the skills for writing. Sometimes someone has a great story and they want to write it, but they aren't a writer. And so then I'm, it's kind of a tutorship, right? I'm giving them readings, I'm helping them write, I'm editing their work and helping them go along the way. But what's really important is their voice. It's their voice that they're writing. So when they work with an editor or a writing coach, I'm not getting in the way of their voice not coming through, right?
Okay.
It's not about my voice.
That's what I'm curious about sometimes, because you're teaching poetry, and that's got to come from within, I presume. And so that's got to be a challenging teaching job, right?
Right.
And of course, I assume you're not expecting every student you work with to come out and be a published poet. But my question would be, what is, how do you describe, or how do you know when you've had achieved any level of success teaching poetry to people?
Right.
Not everyone who is going to be a poet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good question. Like, how do I know when I've been successful as a teacher? When people get joy in what they're doing, they get joy in that writing. They come back and they tell me, I had someone show up Tuesday night I hadn't seen in years, and they were like, you don't know how many people's lives you've touched, And that was just amazing to be told that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's kind of how it works with writing. I'll run into someone years later and they'll tell me, I ended up putting all those poems together and publishing it, and I have this book now. I want to give you a copy of it. There's a woman who I just worked with for over 5 years. She finished her memoir. She just published it, gave me her copy Tuesday night at the event. She's a widow. The book was about her, coming to terms with the passing of her husband, a very sudden death before it was expected.
Oh.
And she ended up writing a beautiful memoir, and it became so much more than she thought it was going to be. And now she's moving on to other writing projects, right? When she never really thought she was going to be a writer. She was just had this project she wanted to do. Now she's got 2 other projects she's working on.
You inspired that within her. That,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's got to feel great.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. You put people in touch with themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a nice way to say it. Thank you.
Sure, write that down.
I am going to write that down.
Somebody write that down. That's my moment. That was my moment of clarity. All right. So we haven't talked yet about your own poetry. You have a collection of poetry out. That's been around for a long time. You're writing. I'm assuming you're probably writing all the time. What's your process like for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a little up and down. And the more you teach, the less creative energy I think you have for your own writing. And so I've gone through times in my life where I'm teaching more at the college, or, I've got other projects going on and I'm not writing as much. The last 2 years, I've really dove back into my own writing, and it's really come to the top of my priority list.
That's great.
So, and it starts with journal writing. So I keep journals. I try to write every day, but I don't write every day. But sometimes I write 3 times in a day. It just depends. I try to carry it with me everywhere I go.
Sure.
And it's from my journal, I'm exploring just what I did that day, but also ideas that I have that I want to write about. So I might be writing in there. And then I'll go back to my journals and go through them a little bit and start pulling out pieces. I start by handwriting. At some point, I put it on the computer, and then I'm going back and forth between hand and computer. And then the last part, it's so important to have a critique group or other poets that you work with, that you share your writing with, and I find that really helpful. And so a big part of my writing life is networking with a lot of writers that I know. And I do have a monthly poetry book club. We meet online, and we're all teaching poets, mostly San Francisco and LA.
Okay, so a lot of different sort of angles of approach for that, which is good, right? When you mentioned not having as much time for your own work because of everything else, you reminded me of an artist. I was just trying to search the name out. I couldn't pull it up because I don't want to ignore you, but you inspired me to think of this. one of the first podcast PBS Reno ever did is Refugee's Daughter, which is a tremendous series that I recommend everyone listen to if you haven't already.
Okay.
And one of the people who Christina Lee talks to is an artist who I went and checked out online and found a piece of work that struck me as my wife's an image of that speaks to her, and it's the same thing. And so this is a woman, this character in a garden, and there are tall stalks of grown plants around, and each of them has a name, and one of them is teaching, and one of them is work, and one of them is finance, and one of them is kids, and there's a little plant that she's tending to that says my personal work,
right.
and and it's just it made me think, you have to find the time for that. You have to make it happen, and it struck me that was so perfect. I bought a print of it and framed it, and it's now hanging in her office because it's inspirational.
That's really beautiful.
And you just made me think of that again. So here you brought some of your own work. Could we hear a little something?
I would love to read you a poem or two.
Beautiful.
Sounds great. So this first one actually is from a trip to Slovenia that I took 2 years ago. And Kurt and I went there. Kurt from Reno Type.
Oh, yeah, Kurt.
And we were bringing his father's ashes back to his home village where he was born.
Oh, a profound visit.
It was. And when his father was 2 years old, he was evacuated or relocated to Austria by the Nazis. The entire village was basically destroyed. And we went back there and we met his best friend who was 85 years old, Frankie.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so talking to Frankie, he was telling me about Gus and his life with Gus, and also telling us about this experience of being evacuated and by the Nazis, and not everyone survived, of course. So this is the story that Frankie told me, and I made it into a poem. And hopefully I won't cry, because I always cry when I read this one. But so Frankie started, this was called Tell Them About Shimmer. And this is how he started when he met me. He said, "Are you a poet? Make them remember. We were always going to the river. The water was thick with fish, the edge level with the bank, the water, you know what I mean? You could put an empty can in and take it out, and a fish was in it. You could throw in a line. We would catch them with our hands. They took the people. You know what I mean? Their hands like this. They walked them over there to a hole, machine guns, and the bodies fell in and back, thick on top of each other. I sat huddled like this in front of my father on Shimmer. We had 2 horses, and I loved the white one. Shimmer would let me do anything. I could play beneath his belly. We rode all night. My mother and brother went up over the mountain on foot. I didn't think we'd ever see them again. How did we find them? Somehow, sitting on the wall. We didn't have water. You know what I mean? Do you see that lump in the grass, that cistern by the road? All that is left to indicate where the homes were. Will you remember? Your father's house name is Bimfash. We would call each other by the names of our homes. I made a map. Here. He was my best friend. The little red face jumping up, Gus at the window, checking on where I was to see into the classroom. He was always trying to check on me. The round face, up and gone, up and gone. They took everything. We were farmers, you know. They can't take the soil. If you had 2 horses, you were doing well. Will you remember me? Remember Shimmer. Tell them about Shimmer.
You created a poetic oral history there.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Thanks. Thank you.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot that I can say to react to that except to feel it.
Yeah.
And to honor it by giving it some thought and
Yeah.
I mean, listening. You, by the way, you do a great job of reading it. I suppose
you.
some writers maybe don't read their own work as well as others, but
It's definitely a thing to that I try to focus on is trying to read, and it is an art in itself, is how you read your work. And I think feeling each line as you say it, like tasting the words, is what I think about when I'm reading it.
That's a great way to put it. I'm going to remember now. I'm going to remember that. That sticks with me too. Tasting the words as you say them. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautifully. Write that down too.
Okay, we'll get that one
Put
down
that
too.
in one of your future poems.
Okay.
Incredible.
Good.
And I see you brought your collection Bite and Blood, right?
Yes.
That's another one. I'd read about that.
Yeah, so I have two poems that I could read from in here. So you're going to choose.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a really fun poem about the Tamsin Donner and the Donner Party.
Okay.
And I also have the title poem, which is about an encounter with a deer.
Ooh. All right. That's tempting. I'm going to go with, in honor of Truckee Literary Crawl coming April 5th in downtown Truckee, the Tamsin Donner.
Okay. Well, you are brave. So I have read this once at an open mic, and someone left the room, and then they came back when I was done, and I asked them later how they were and what happened, and they said, well, your poetry makes me nauseous.
Wow, what have I done? All right.
So that actually could be a compliment for a poet. Because you're making people feel, right? So I became obsessed when I moved to Truckee with Tamsin Donner. Who doesn't really? The Donner Party, happened a mile from my house. So this one starts with a little epigraph, and this is from a soldier in the eastward bound army in 1847. They came through a year after the Donner Party event, and they had conquered California. Right? So Edwin Bryant, he said the cabins by order of Major Swords were fired, and with them everything connected with this horrid and melancholy tragedy were consumed. So my poem is called Tamsin Donner Commits Horrid Acts with Her Husband.
Okay, well, what a title.
Okay, the tent, canvas from the wagon, a pebbly texture sagging with ice, crackling in the night air, wind monologue, dead cold trees. From within, Tamsin and her dying husband watched the layer of canvas, fearing its failure, the loss of that distinction between inside and outside. Storms lasted 10 days at a time. Starving so, skeleton shows through. Now the body is the shape of what's inside. After he died, she stroked his body, the bones and tendons like wrapping twine around his femur, radius, and ulna. She dressed him, then undressed him, kneading the clothes herself. He lay naked under a threadbare quilt, Midwest quilting socials, bills sewn into the squares. She removed the blanket and wrapped herself in it, gazing and not gazing. Was she still the woman who married him? Was he in death the man she married? Tamsin licked his wrist, remembering. She used her teeth as when he used to bite little purple marks into her neck. She nibbled along the inside of his arm. She felt most familiar with this part of him, what was visible as he worked, what touched her when he held her face to kiss her. A penknife was all that was needed to slice out a curve of pink as if melon from its rind. Her tongue ran across the inside of his arm, its damp baby pink surprising beneath the brown paper bag skin, as if here was the man she married, here the untouched part. She savored the hope of him in the hard white desert of winter, his release from the packaging of his body, and for her a surrender to the inside. The outside layers collapsing inwards, heavy tent walls sagging, silence pressed upon her. She chewed slowly to make him last, her eyes closed in pleasure.
Wow. The where you have to go in your own mind to imagine that and then write about it, that's quite an exercise, I imagine, too.
It is. I really love writing about character.
It's beautiful. I mean, you put me there. I could completely feel that.
Yeah.
So I can understand why somebody who maybe was a little queasy or would say, I have to go.
Yeah.
But I do not regret my choice. Thank you for sharing some of your work.
Thank you.
Maybe down the road we'll do a midterm check-in and see what's going on.
I would love that.
See how your progress is with the Bridging the County project, because to me, that's a really fascinating idea. And I think bridging people is a great idea these days. So the more we can do, the better.
Exactly.
So thank you for coming in. That's Karen Terrey, the brand new Poet Laureate of Nevada County. And we definitely would like to talk to you again. So thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, I want to remind everybody to watch Artifacts on PBS Reno via broadcast or stream on pbsreno.org. Also watch on the PBS Reno YouTube channel or on the PBS app. Also, you can read art views at pbsreno.org. And now, do you have a question or maybe a comment or a suggestion? If so, please send them to me at podcasts@pbsreno.org. My thanks to Karen Terrey, and thank you for listening to PBS Reno Arts. Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org.